Juneteenth together. Actually, did you know that Juneteenth became a national holiday back in 2021? And although it's honored by many before that time, it's also important to know the history and how to share those stories of freedom and resilience and celebration, of course. So Juneteenth fashion show founder Leah Frazier, writer and historian Deah Mitchell join us to tell us so much more about why we celebrate and enlighten us on the other freedom holidays that happen throughout the year as well. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
So glad to have you guys here. So let's talk about it. For people who don't know, Deah, can you explain what exactly Juneteenth is?
Absolutely. So Juneteenth stands for June 19th, both of those words combined, and it essentially is Black Texans' emancipation holiday. And it celebrates the date that Black Texans found out that they were no longer enslaved.
Yes.
So that's the date that it commemorates.
My goodness. Can you tell me, Leah, I mean, I know why we celebrate, and I'm sure they do too, but let's put it into words. Why do we put so much emphasis on celebrating this holiday?
Because honestly, I think we owe that to our ancestors. Yeah. They did a lot, they went through a lot, and we'll talk a little bit later about what you actually see, the work they put in Galveston. But we owe that to them to celebrate our liberation, our excellence, our freedom, and all the ways that we have excelled after June 19th of 1865.
Yes. Well, we've learned that Galveston was a pivotal location when it comes to Juneteenth, and you guys have actually been there. You've took a trip yourselves, and so can you explain to us the tie that the city has to the culture in general?
Yes, it's super powerful. So there's a place where you can go off the water where the transatlantic slave, where all the enslaved were actually dropped off. So to see where they touch land, where that water is very powerful. And then there's certain touch points within the city, like Reedy Chapel, or where the Juneteenth mural is, where the orders were actually read to the enslaved, telling them that they were free. Wow. And so all of those markers are in Galveston. There's other places as well, but you'll be able to touch soil and stand in the places where they first learned of their freedom.
That is incredibly impactful. I can only imagine the feeling that you were.
I
was going to ask, what were you experiencing in those moments, standing in the same place that you know your ancestors were, knowing the trials and tribulations that they went through?
It was powerful for me. I had my nephew with me, and it was a lot of things that he didn't learn in school that we were actually taught. So shout out to the professor of Juneteenth that's there that taught us so many facts, and he was moved. So to see, a high school 18-year-old kid moved by being able to put his feet in the sand or put his finger in the bricks where the enslaved actually put their fingerprint to let other family members know that they were okay or where they were, is super powerful. And it's very moving. And if you don't get moved to tears, what's happening?
What's going on? That's the whole point of this holiday, though, is to fellowship and share those fun facts because they're so important. Knowledge is power. And when we let it die, the knowledge dies as well. And so you've expressed that there are other emancipation holidays throughout the year that we really don't know about. And so can you fill us in on some of the other holidays maybe we can put on our calendar?
Yes, and I actually love telling people this because a lot of people don't know.
Yes.
So in the United States, there were at one point over 20 different Black American emancipation holidays. Some of the popular ones were September 22nd, which is the date that Abraham Lincoln actually signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Another date was January the 1st. And then we have 8 May, which is May 8th in Mississippi. And then in Florida, Southern Florida specifically, they celebrated May 20th, and they call it now May 10th.
Oh my goodness.
So I love it, but there are lots of others, so I definitely want to make sure that we give them their shout outs.
Okay, I have to give a shout out to Freedom Day. That one was in Virginia. I know all about Freedom Day, actually.
Do
I
you?
celebrated that as a child growing up. And so I love to see that on the list.
Yeah.
Tell me, because you're right, this knowledge is so incredibly powerful, but it's also sometimes a hard conversation to have because it is reality of what happened, right? And so what advice would you give to families who are maybe working through that trial of trying to explain exactly what happened, but in a way that is digestible for a child?
I say, one of the things that I always come across is people don't want to so much focus on the struggle, let's focus on the celebration piece, but I think you have to have both to really appreciate the holiday. So Opal Lee came out with a children's book on Juneteenth, so I think that's a great way to introduce your kids there, great colorful pictures, but also immersion. Take them out to the events, take them to the barbecues, Teach them the line dances.
Come on now.
Allow them to celebrate in that way. Take them to Pan-African Connection. Allow them to choose their Juneteenth shirt. So they're proud of where we are as a community, but also teaching them through those books, the children's books, that is, of their history.
Yes, indeed. Submerge them
Yeah,
into the
immersion.
culture.
We need
Come on.
Yeah.
You actually have an event going on today honoring Juneteenth. Tell us how you're celebrating.
Yeah, so come to the Juneteenth fashion show. The way I celebrate my freedom is through Black excellence in design and fashion, color, vibrancy, prints. This year we're celebrating with the African think tank. So we're celebrating with the entire African diaspora because we were spread out all over the Caribbean, Latin countries in Europe. And so we have designers from Colombia and other ones from the Caribbean, but also our Black American designers here in Dallas who are absolutely thriving. We have Cupid, the line dance king, leading us in our line dances. We have Tiffany Derry, who's going to
be a party for sure.
It is a time.
Oh my
It is a vibe.
goodness. I want to get this in here really quickly because you've done some traveling. So
Yeah.
tell me how you are celebrating or how you have celebrated in the days leading up to today.
Yeah, I usually try to take off on Juneteenth.
Me too.
However, sometimes I take, I make an exception. So I do public speaking, so I love it when I get those. I also just wrapped up my tour, Soul of DFW. Make sure you take that. I actually had a sponsor, Game Time Transportation, so thank you so much, who helped me put on the tour this year. And in addition to that, I celebrate by reading this good book here. So it's called Juneteenth 101 by Dr. Donald Cox.
There we
And this
go.
is actually a signed copy for you.
I love.
Yeah.
Look, we're all learning a little bit about Juneteenth
That's right.
today. Thank you so much,
You're
you
so
both, for
welcome.
being here this morning and giving us the little knowledge that we need on this holiday.
Yes.